Have you always wanted to learn how to make sandwich bread? Well, I'm Katie and welcome to Katie's Kitchen Creations. Let's make some sandwich bread. So first we're going to start off with some white bread flour, and then we're going to dump in some salt, some yeast. Make sure you don't dump your yeast with your salt or it can deactivate your yeast, and sugar. We give that a little mix with our rubber spatula. Make sure it's all incorporated well. Okay, so that's our dry ingredients. We set that aside. Now we're going to take a big bowl and we're going to put in water, milk, and oil. I just use canola oil. And now we're going to warm that up in the microwave until it's nice and hot. You don't want it boiling hot, just kind of hot. I do about 1 minute and 45 seconds. Okay, so I just pulled this out of the microwave. I'm going to use my thermometer. We're just going to see about where the temperature is at. About 115 degrees, that's perfect. Now we're going to add some lemon juice in there. So we're just going to give that a little stir here. It might look a little bit chunky because you added lemon juice into milk and that curdles the milk a little bit, which is fine, that's what we want. So now we're going to take our dry ingredients. We're going to take our wet ingredients and just pour them right in. I don't make a well, I don't do anything special, I just pour them in. You're going to notice that this bowl is kind of coated in that oil a little bit. That's good. Set that aside, do not put it in the sink. We're going to use that to put our dough in once our dough is ready. So now you're just going to start stirring this. We're just going to keep stirring. You can use a wooden spoon. I like to use a rubber spatula. You can use whatever you want. Stir it until it forms a nice dough. Okay, so this is what our dough is looking like now. Just kind of a big ball. It's kind of chunky looking. So now we're just going to dump that right out of our bowl onto our counter. And it should pretty much come clean. You should have just a little bit of flour, maybe a few little pieces of dough. So that's how much you should mix it. And we're just going to start kneading. So to knead, if you've never kneaded dough, it can be kind of a trick that you need to learn. You're just going to kind of fold the dough over on itself and push with this part of your hand. So fold it over and push. Fold it over and push with the palm of your hand. You can kind of fold with one hand. I like to fold with my left and push with my right, or you can switch and you can fold with your right and push with your left. As you can see, this dough right now, it's pretty sticky. It's starting to stick to my counter a little bit. So what we're going to do is just add some more flour to that. I like to sprinkle some on top, sprinkle some underneath. Don't worry about getting too much. You probably won't have too much at this point if you sprinkle a little bit on there. So then you're just going to keep kneading. Fold and push. Fold and push. Your dough is going to kind of pick up some of that flour. It's going to be a little bit easier to knead it. Okay, this dough is starting to really come together here. As you can see, you can kind of shape it into a ball. It's kind of smooth. I can still kind of feel some bumps in there, but it's a lot smoother than it was. It's starting to get a little bit stretchy, but it's not done yet. Our next step is going to be to throw the dough. This is my favorite part. So you're just going to pick up your dough and hold it kind of towards the bottom with 2 hands, and you're just going to throw it onto your counter. Pick it up like this and throw it. And I like to kind of fold it back onto itself, push it back onto itself, and I usually grab it from the next side, pick it up and throw it. And what that does is it really lengthens out and develops those gluten strands, which is what helps add that really nice texture to our bread. So pick it up and throw it. You don't have to throw it like this. That can help, but it's not as helpful as doing a stretching fold where you hold it and let it fall off of itself. And I like to do that about 4 times, kind of do all 4 sides, pick it up, turn it, fold it, and then I just continue kneading. And usually on my first throw, as you can see, it gets flour everywhere, that's okay. On my first throw, I usually notice that when I start kneading it again, it feels a little bit softer, it feels a little bit smoother. And that is really what we want. We just want to keep on kneading. It's going to start feeling smoother, it's going to start feeling softer. If you end up with it sticking to your hands or sticking to your counter, go ahead and just add a little bit more flour as you go. You can switch hands if one hand gets tired. If it's easier to do it with two hands, you can do that. It's a little bit more awkward, but you can do it with two hands. Every so often, you're just going to want to throw that dough. So pick it up from the bottom and throw it. And like I said, that really just develops those gluten strands. I like to do it 4 times each time I do it. And then I just keep on kneading, and every time you throw the dough, you're going to notice that your dough feels a lot smoother, a lot softer. And I'm going to show you a trick towards the end, how to know when your dough is ready. I've kind of just been doing it long enough. I just know what it feels like. I know when it feels elasticy enough. I know when it feels smooth enough. Okay, we're going to throw our dough again. And if you're making this with all-purpose flour rather than bread flour, the more you throw the dough, the better your texture will be. With bread flour, you don't have to throw as much because it already has that higher protein content, the higher gluten amount in it. So you don't have to worry about that as much with bread flour, but it does help add to the texture and it helps develop that dough. Okay, this is starting to really feel really smooth, really elasticy. I'm thinking it's going to be either done or close. So we're going to do a little test here. This is called the window test. I learned this in a college baking class. It's a little bit sticky, so I'm going to get a little bit of flour on my fingers. You're going to want to just kind of smush this between your fingers so that it gets really, really nice and thin. When you get it pretty thin, you're going to want to kind of stretch it between your fingers like this. You can kind of see the light through there, but it's starting to tear here. So that means our dough is not quite ready yet. When you can get that and it can stay up there for a few seconds, being able to see the light through it without it tearing, then your dough is ready. It's elasticy enough. So since we tore kind of in the first second or two, we're going to go ahead and just knead it a few more times. Maybe let's do another throw. Make sure we get nice and elasticy, soft, smooth dough. Okay, we've been kneading this for quite a while now. It's feeling really, really nice and smooth. It feels really stretchy, really elasticy when I'm folding it on itself. So now we're going to do that window test again. Just get a pretty small little piece of dough. If it's a little sticky, just get some flour on your fingers. Kind of flour up that dough. Spread it between your fingers. Flatten it out until it's nice and thin. Spread it out. Oh, that's nice. So it's holding its little window shape. It's a little opaque in the middle. You can kind of see through it, and it's not tearing. And I've even held it up here for quite a long time. It's not tearing. That is the perfect dough. It's nice and elasticy. So we are ready to let it rise. I'm just going to kind of knead that little piece back in there. And then you're going to want to just kind of pull it like this so that it gets kind of a tight ball. I'm just going to shape that into a nice tight ball. When dough is rising, it needs tension. All right, so now we're going to place that in our bowl. So we're going to make sure our ball is nice and tight. We're going to plop it in there. Here, I like to give it a little spritz on the top with some cooking spray. I just use olive oil cooking spray, but you can use whatever you have. Or if you don't have cooking spray, just sprinkle a little oil on there, spread it around. It just helps it not to stick to the plastic wrap. And then we're just going to take some plastic wrap and we're going to cover our bowl. Or you can just use a towel. Kitchen towel is fine. I like to just put plastic wrap on here and just cover it nice and tight. And then we set it aside and we wait. I usually let it rise for 45 minutes to an hour. All right, our dough has risen for approximately an hour. As you can see in this size bowl, it's squishing up against the plastic wrap. It is nice and tall. So we're going to take that plastic wrap off. And this is what it looks like. It should be a little bit jiggly. It should kind of indent when you poke it with your finger, just like that. You should see some bubbles in there. So what we're going to do is we're going to dump that out. And it should just glide right out of your bowl, leaving hardly anything behind. We're going to kind of punch, this is called punching it down. You can punch it if you want to. Otherwise, just kind of flatten it out. It helps get out some of those air bubbles. All right, so now we're going to shape this into loaves. This recipe makes 3 loaves of bread. So I like to just use a bench scraper, and I just divide it in 3. So we divided that in 3. So now we're just going to go ahead and shape this. I just have 3 loaf pans here. I like to use glass, but you can use anything that you have, and I spray them with olive oil cooking spray. So then what you're going to do to shape it, you're just going to flatten out this little section of dough that you have into kind of a rectangle. Just with your hand. You can use a rolling pin if you want, but I like to just use my hand. I flip it over. Sometimes this side looks a little funny, so I flip it over. Go ahead and just start rolling that up. So I like to just kind of make sure it seals, roll it really tight. Again, when dough rises, it needs tension. So we're just going to roll that really nice and tight. It's going to look kind of long and funny at this stage. And then you're going to seal that. So you're going to pinch all along that seam so that you don't have a spot that's going to come apart. And then I like to take this end and I like to just pull it all the way over and pinch all over so that it seals that end in. Pinch, pinch, pinch. Seal it all together. You can kind of squish it together if your rectangle got a little bit too long like mine did. You can kind of tuck the ends in if you need to, if it's getting a little bit too long. Then you're just going to plop that into your loaf pan. And then you just go on working to the next one. So I'm going to fold this one in on itself a little bit just because it's a little bit too long and I don't want to work with that. So we're just going to flatten this out. There's a lot of ways to shape dough into a loaf, and you can do whatever works for you. This is just the way that I do it the most often. I'm going to tightly roll this dough. Pull the end over and pinch. Pull the end over and pinch. Make sure all those seams are sealed together. That's beautiful. And then I like to just cover that with a flour sack towel or just a kitchen towel of some kind. And then we just let that rise for an hour. All right, so our loaves have risen for about an hour now. Clearly I did not divide them evenly, and that's okay when I'm just making it for my family. When I'm making them for someone else, I usually divide the dough with a scale and weigh each loaf out. So I like to rise my dough for about an hour until it comes, you know, about that much above my pan. So I like to bake these in a 350-degree oven for about 25 to 30 minutes or until they're nice and golden brown. All right, so we just pulled these out of our oven. It took about 27 minutes or so. As you can see, they're all golden brown. You can see the sides. So then what we want to do is we're just going to dump them right out of our pans. I don't ever let them rest. I feel like they get sweaty. They get a little funny if I leave them in the pan for any length of time. So I just like to dump them right out, prop them right up. If you use cooking spray, they usually just dump right out. And there we have it. I usually will brush these with a little melted butter, a little margarine. Sometimes I just spray them with a little cooking spray. Sometimes I spritz them with a little water. Just depends on how I'm feeling that day. My favorite is just to use the butter. It really softens up the crust and makes it taste really yummy. And then I just drape a flour sack towel or a kitchen towel over them for an hour or so while they cool before I slice them all up. All right, so these have been cooling for about an hour and a half and they're mostly cold. So we're gonna go ahead and slice into it and see what it looks like. It's looking like a beautiful loaf of bread. It's nice and soft. It's holding together really well. You can kind of move it around. It's not going to crumble right apart. So that is a good sandwich bread that will hold together for a sandwich. Thank you for watching Caty's Kitchen Creations.